Welcome to MSP Voice, the weekly show for MSPs by MSPs. Brought to you by Cloudberry, the #1 cross-platform cloud backup. Learn more at cloudberrylab.com. This is MSP Voice. Hello and welcome to MSP Voice. This is episode number 15. We've got a great interview today. It's with Steve Taylor from MSP Webinars. It's a great resource. If you've never been to MSPWebinars.com, I would definitely check it out. He's got a lot of great stuff out there for MSPs. He's also very active in the community. You've probably seen him on Reddit and several other places. So great interview with Steve, and looking forward to that. But first, let's get to Reddit. So I've got just a quick best of Reddit today. I've got 3 different articles here we're going to talk about that I've found recently, and I think they're kind of interesting. So first up, employee training. So do you pay your employees to take training and certifications? Do you have minimum requirements regarding training and or certs? So, basically, you need to keep up on the technology, you need training, but how do you kind of offer some incentive to do that? A lot of different opinions here on this. A lot of people will pay for training. Some will pay for books and materials, but they have to do the training on their own time, not during office time, and those types of things. Also, kind of the recurring thread is that they will pay for exams, but only if passed. So if an employee goes and takes an exam and fails, they have to pay for it. But if they pass, then they come back and then the employer will pay for it. Just a nice way, incentive to say, look, I'm not going to pay you to take a test unless you pass. So that's some good advice there. And then there's also others that talk about, kind of having, introductory periods where, like the first 90 days, they offer some training, and then they get a raise after that. And then afterwards, if they get additional training and or certifications, then they bump their pay up even more. So it's an incentive to keep, that continuous learning mode going. Others, they have, a lot of training materials and study guides. They have a library that they keep around for their employees to peruse. Great if you're on the bench and not doing anything, to brush up on all these different new technologies and work on getting your certifications. And the other thing too, and some talk about this is, look at your vendors. Your vendors probably offer some training or even certifications. So definitely if you standardized on some vendors in your business, talk to them about their training programs and make sure that all your employees stay up to date on it. Next up is we have a new MSP, so brand new. He's been working in the corp IT MSP world for the last 10 years, but last month opened his own solo MSP and has 1 customer so far. And of course, as we've all heard before, he's having a hard time getting more customers, getting his name out there, those types of things. So he's located in Houston, so any of you out there want to jump in on this thread, then great. But as a lot of advice goes, we hear this a lot. How do I get business? How do I do things? Typically, it's through referrals. And if you've got that 1 customer and then they can give you some referrals, you can grow your business that way. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. But there's a really good post here that I actually upvoted to that goes through and has a lot of bullet points in terms of things to do, great advice. Right? Because he admits the early part is the hard part, but he says pick a core industry type and chase it. And actually, our interview today, Steve talks about doing something just like that, is specialize in something because that way who you're going to be talking to, your target market. It makes it a lot easier. Then he goes on to give just a ton of bullet points and great advice on some best practices and those types of things. One advice is don't bite off more than you can chew. It might be, you might think, hey, I'm going to go get this great big client, and but what if you can't handle it? What if you go chasing after and you end up getting a customer and they're too big for you? So definitely try to make sure that you don't overshoot yourself, in resources and those types of things to make sure that you can handle it. And then there's others. There's some vendors weighing in here too. He uses SolarWinds, so SolarWinds came in and talk about some of their marketing programs that they have. So some good advice here. And again, if you're in the Houston area, you want to reach out to this new MSP, have at it. And finally, in our best of Reddit is how does your MSP get everyone to do their timesheets on time, accurately, etc. So that's it. That's the title of the thread. Nothing else in there, but it's basically, how do I make sure that to get everyone to do this on a timely basis? And pretty much the overwhelming advice is you have to do it as you go. You can't go do a job or do something and then think that you're going to remember like several hours later to put the time down accurately or to try to do it at the end of the day. You're going to miss stuff. So definitely record it as soon as you do it is the popular opinion. And then the other thing is to make sure that you add that documentation time in as part of the contract. So this first poster here says if a job takes 15 minutes, put 20 minutes in the timesheet because 5 minutes counts as documentation time. So that's part. Doing timesheets is part of documentation, and a lot of people definitely do agree with that. That you definitely have to do that. Others have talked about doing some incentive programs for getting people to accurately do their time. One poster talked about that if you did your time, the company he was at, if they did their time, didn't miss a week for the whole year, at Christmas they'd get a $300 cash bonus. Somebody pointed out, well, that would be great, but if you forgot to do it in January for 1 week, then you're not going to get your bonus for the rest of the year, so your incentive's kind of gone. But just some different ways, and there's a lot of different ways to incent people to do their timesheets, whether it's a bonus at the end of the year or different types of things like that. And then there's also great ways to automate it. So a couple of different people here talking about scripts that they've written, especially useful on like the solution desk or on the help desk, so that when you pick up the phone, a script fires off, opens a ticket. It's simple. They're not trying to tie it into their management system or anything. It just opens a ticket when they pick up the phone. So that way they can, and it starts tracking the time, and then they can enter it in right when as soon as the call is done or during the call or whatever. But just a great way to kind of boom, put it in your face. You have to document it as soon as it happens. So some really, really good advice there on those. So with that, again, short best of Reddit today because I didn't want to take too much away from Steve and his great interview that we did and talking about MSP webinars. So check out information in the show notes. He's got a discount code for us for MSP webinars. If you want to subscribe, you can save $45. So definitely check it out. And with that, we'll go to Steve. Hello and welcome to MSP Voice. Very excited today. I've got Steve Taylor with me. He's going to tell us all about what he does, both as an MSP as well as MSP Webinars. So Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Doug. I am super stoked to be here. So I run an MSP, as you mentioned, and I also run MSP Webinars, which I'm not sure if your audience is familiar, but I basically work to educate them in similar ways that you do, but I bring on vendors to talk about some of their products. In fact, I had you on to talk about Cloudberry, which was fantastic.
Yeah, that was several months ago, but definitely enjoyed it. So, but just managed services in general, what kind of made you get into managed services? What was your career path, I guess?
So, my career path is interesting in the fact that, I've been fascinated with technology since I was a little kid. Mm-hmm. My first computer, I was 6. It was an IBM 80286. I took apart my first computer when I was 8. I had no idea how to put the thing back together. I still have screws left over when I'm done to this very day. Who doesn't though, right?
Yeah.
I hacked my school's Novell network in my junior year. I got busted reading the teacher's handbook.
Uh-oh.
Like the lamest thing to get caught doing, right? Later on, that school hired me. I started the first day after graduating.
Oh, great.
I was a technician. I was actually the only person certified to administer their Novell network. They wouldn't let me touch it.
Oh.
After a while, I ended up taking a sales role at one of those big online retailers. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting because then I started getting familiar with the popular products Like back then, it was Veritas Backup Exec, and
Yeah.
Symantec was all the rage back then for their antivirus, and so I started getting used to that stuff. And one of my customers happened to be a little 45 minutes away from me in Akron, Ohio, and they said, "Hey, do you know anyone looking for a job as an entry-level tech?" I'm thinking, I guess I could go back to entry level. That sounds like fun. I'm sick of sales.
Yeah.
So I said, "How about me?" And they ended up bringing me on. I was with them for several years, and I didn't like the way they did things. No employee ever does though, right?
Yeah. True.
Their idea of proactive service and support was let's get them to sign a contract, and we're going to bill them for blocks of hours every month. And in order to make sure we use those blocks of hours, we're going to proactively, air quotes for the people just listening, proactively schedule someone to be on site. So we used LogMeIn. So we had no RMM tool. We used some really janky, I wouldn't call it a PSA. It was like, it was the worst ticketing system in the world. And the best part is, like, within my first 3 months, I got yelled at for using one of the ticket sources because they had ID 10T as one of the reasons for the ticket being opened. Well, that customer was an idiot, so I chose that one. and the owner of the company came to me and said, "Why did you do that?" I'm like, "Do what?" And they're like, "Why did you select that option?" Because it was there.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, I mean, that's kind of the path I took. And an opportunity came up for me to start my own company. And you know how it is. Everyone's like, "Oh, I'm going to start my company. I'm going to do it right. I get to make all the decisions. I'm going to be my own boss." And little do we know, right?
Yes, yes. And that it's kind of funny because a lot of people have said, what advice do you have someone just starting out? And they say, don't. Because it's a lot more to it than what you might think. It's easy to think you know everything and you can do it on your own, but then when the reality hits, it becomes a lot more difficult than what you actually thought. But
so true.
But you're a success story, so you stuck with it. I'm assuming this didn't just happen last year, so.
No.
How long?
No,
how long?
2009 is when I started my MSP.
Okay.
And the thing that did happen last year was MSP Webinars. And I'll be honest, I keep it 100, okay? So I'll be honest, I started MSP Webinars as a gag.
Okay.
So I have a room that is now one of the cornerstone features of MSP Webinars. It's called the Zoom room. And
I've been in that room.
Yeah, it's a good time. We get a lot of stuff accomplished. We build professional relationships, friendships. We become a family of sorts. But over a year ago, gosh, it's been 2 years now since I started the Zoom room, and it would be IT guys that are most of the time sole proprietors who just need that other person to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
And then I would say, "Hey, let's just talk about something in a couple hours." So then I would talk about something, and it'd be a good time. And then I started inviting other people, more and more people. And you'd be like, "Dude, you can't just spring this meeting on us and say, 'Hey, let's talk about pricing your managed services, and we're going to do it in 27 minutes." I said, "Okay, fine." So then I actually started scheduling things, and it just kind of evolved, and for the first 3 to 6 months, people picked on me because, how is Steve going to make money doing this? He should be focusing on building his MSP practice. And here I am, 18 months later, and MSP Webinars has turned into a very successful, profitable company for me.
Great, and because one of the things I've noticed, as a vendor, is that you don't charge vendors. So typically, something like what you do, you would, the vendors would sponsor to be on one of your webinars, and you'd have a subscription model for them, those types of things. But your model is different. You actually have a subscription service for the MSPs.
That's correct. So being an MSP, I try to look at this differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to look out for the other MSPs. Doug, I like you, but I'm not looking out for you, okay? I'm looking out for the guy that's considering giving you all of their money.
Yeah.
So in doing that, what I've done is, instead of saying, Doug, in order to be on a webinar, you have to give me hundreds or thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
No, you have to give my members, the people that are paying and subscribing to MSP Webinars, a deal.
Yeah.
And, the deals look different depending on the type of company you are. One of the RMM tools is offering, like 10% off. One of the documentation tools, they're waiving their 5-user minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So, the deals vary. Obviously, not all deals are going to make, not the same type of deal is going to make the same sense for every type of vendor, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I were to take your money, then how can the MSP trust that I'm giving an actual unbiased webinar and actually asking you the tough questions? Because I ask tough questions in the webinars.
Mm-hmm.
I let the attendees ask all of the exact same questions that they would ask in a one-on-one conversation with a salesperson. How does it work? What does it cost? Does it suck? How do I know you're not lying to me? Is this snake oil? We get down to business in these webinars, and I think it works well for everyone that way.
Okay. Yeah, and then you have a round table that you do as well, of MSPs, and you can join and listen. It's on my calendar. I join sometimes, but I don't always make it.
Yes. So it's the second Thursday of every month.
Okay.
Instead of doing an actual webinar, it's a roundtable, as you had alluded to. So every second Thursday, I try and pick a topic. This upcoming Thursday, we're going to talk about how to price your managed services offering.
Okay.
So I actually just wrote a short little ebook guide, whatever you want to call it, on here's the method I recommend, or at least that you consider. And I've also got a margin calculator that I built for all of the members to download and utilize themselves. And it all just kind of puts it all together for them to say, okay, here's what everything costs me. Here's the type of profit margin I want to have, at least the gross profit margin that I want to have. So here's what I need to be charging, per user.
That's great.
I'm just trying to find ways to make it easier for especially for the startups or maybe for the smaller MSPs that maybe they were break fix and they want to get an MSP and they just don't know sometimes.
Yeah, and I know when I initially reached out to you, you kind of told me all this in terms of being vendor neutral, because you don't want to seem like you're playing favorites or anything like that. And at the time I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And you obviously have subscribers, because the MSPs, in order to get access to the special deals, in order to get access to the webinars and those types of things, they pay a fee. And I've actually seen that model evolve a little bit over time as well. Which hey, it's a good thing, right? You're building your business, but if anyone's listening, I just want people to understand that it is a resource for MSPs. It's not vendor sponsored. I think it's a great community resource. Obviously there is a fee involved, but hopefully the members feel that they get the value for paying that fee. They get the value out of it between the deals and the educational items and those types of things.
And I do want to clarify, not everything that I do has a fee involved.
Yes.
So there's a monthly membership, and there are member-only, I call them breakout sessions, because they're not full-fledged webinars. Some of these only go for 20 or 30 minutes.
Okay.
There's documentation, there's vendor deals. There's just a ton of stuff that's available to the members. But if you just want to show up to one of the webinars, if you want to come see Doug from Cloudberry talk about his stuff, you can do that. And in fact, those are all recorded and they're available free to watch the recordings on YouTube just by going to MSP Webinars on YouTube. So I do have this as a free resource as well. There's just more available when you give me money.
Well, that's the way it should be.
Imagine that, right?
Yeah. But part of my role is from a community perspective, with MSPs, and I think what you're doing is building a great community. Because of the way, just the way you're doing things, you're very transparent. And like you said, you ask the hard questions. You don't let the vendors off the hook.
I try.
Yeah.
And we've had some webinars where, you watch them and you're like, ooh, that's not going well for that vendor. And then you have some others where you watch and you're like, man, that vendor, like, you can tell that they're just really on it. And while I may never need this service because maybe it only works specifically with a PSA that I don't use, like, this gives me hope that not every vendor is, just out to take my money and not give me a good service.
Yeah. Yep. So how do you said at the beginning, in case you haven't heard of me, that kind of gets a little bit into advertising. Now, I've seen you post about MSP webinars, and that's kind of how I first got to see you. I saw you on Reddit. But how do you kind of get the word out there about MSP webinars, or is it just word of mouth?
So there is some word of mouth. I would say that word of mouth definitely plays a part. I post on Reddit. There's groups on Facebook, LinkedIn, my own personal profiles on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm also doing targeted advertising on like Facebook ads. I'm looking into doing like Google ads and that type of stuff. These things actually work.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are like, I don't want to waste my money on ads. Those things don't ever work. If you know how to target your audience, and more importantly, if you know who your audience is and you know how to target them, the advertising will work.
Yeah. So, but no, let's kind of flip that on its head a little bit, because I'm assuming when you're talking about that, you're talking about advertising for MSP webinars. But what about for your MSP business? What are you employing the same tactics for that? Because that's what a lot of people are most interested in, is how do I let people know about the services I offer?
So for my MSP, again, I'm keeping it 100. I am not actively trying to build it.
Okay.
I'm actually shrinking it. I don't want to say I'm firing, but I am helping some of the more problematic or less profitable clients find a service provider. Like I'm actually going and saying, hey, you should work with Rick over at this company.
Yeah.
I think he can provide you better service, because I'll be honest, I have found real passion in MSP webinars, and this is what I'm putting most of my focus to.
Okay.
However, I will say that, again, if you know what your audience looks like, you need to build like a customer profile.
Yeah.
If you know what your customer looks like, you can do the same types of things with, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, Google ads. You just need to know what your customer looks like. You also need to provide excellent customer service.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you mentioned earlier, if you have one thing to say to a person considering starting a company, don't. I say, remember that you are a customer service company.
Yeah.
That just happens to do IT.
That's
and
good.
if you're providing excellent customer service, if you are wowing your clients from start to finish, from sales to onboarding to month services, they're going to talk about you in good ways.
Yeah.
If you're not wowing them, they're going to talk about you in bad ways. So keep that in mind too. You're going to get a reputation one way or another based on how you treat your clients and how happy they are working with you. The ways that that this can help you is, let's say you want to focus on a particular vertical industry, like let's say you want to get into law firms.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you go and talk to the local bar association and figure out how you can become some type of vendor sponsor. Now you can start working with some of these law firms, attending events that they allow vendors to attend,
Mm-hmm.
Sponsoring a table at the event so you can get some marketing face time with them. And now they're going to start to talk about you because there's a few of them that are working with you. And you can say, hey, go talk to John over at XYZ law firm and ask him what he thinks of my service. And so a lot of MSP, I think, needs to be word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
But there are definitely ways that you can get out there to kind of force that word of mouth to happen.
Yeah,
but I think you have to build that reputation.
Yeah, but I also think what you said too. You said earlier about you have to know your customer, know who your customer is, and then you also brought in the fact that hey, if you specialize in a vertical, that makes it a lot easier. Like you said, law firms, because now you have more of a focus. And if you're only looking in a specific geographic area, you mentioned earlier about Google AdWords and targeting. You want to target lawyers in this geographic area, or these terms, within this area. The search information, that type of stuff can get very specific. And we've had a lot of great advice, from MSPs about how they advertise and what they do. From working with nonprofits to buying placemats in the local diner and all those types of things. So lots of interesting ideas out there for marketing.
There definitely are, and it might seem like you're almost pigeonholing yourself,
mm-hmm.
but the more focused you can become when figuring out who you want to work with, the easier it is for you to start marketing to those people.
Yeah.
Because if you say, I'm only going to work, for now anyway, with law firms that specialize in bankruptcy. Now, how easy it is for you to go out and target bankruptcy
Yep.
attorneys? Now you can do a specific search on LinkedIn and start connecting with those people, mm-hmm. and sending them messages, requesting meetings. Hey, let's just sit down, get to know each other.
Yeah.
And again, build that. You need to build a relationship with some of these people sometimes, and maybe that's not the approach everyone takes, and I get that, but I like to go for almost the long pitch sometimes, and prove to them that I'm kind of like an expert in my industry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a thought leader.
Yeah.
in the area. So when you take that approach, it's really easy for them to come to you and say, hey, look, why don't you give me a quote?
Yeah.
why don't you take a look at my server?
Yeah.
Let me know what you think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if my current provider is doing a good job or not.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, no problem.
Cool. And then the other thing about specializing, in certain areas is you get to learn the software that they use, right? Because
yes.
the software that a doctor's office uses is very different than the software that a lawyer is going to use, a law firm is going to use, is very different than
Absolutely.
a manufacturing company is going to use. So, it kind of, because once you kind of get into a few of them, then you can start to speak the lingo a lot better and understand, oh yeah, I got your LexisNexis system, I can, do all this, whatever. So, it does help make a difference. And
the cool thing with that is, and I'm sorry, I know I just interrupted you.
No, it's all right.
But it's important to think about it like this. Okay, sure. Now I'm only working with one particular industry, one vertical, right? Mm-hmm. But now I know that all of my law firms really like using these, 3 or 4 programs.
Yeah.
And now I can go become certified in these programs if I want to start being able to do some basic line of business application support.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can charge more per hour or more per user and show even more value as an MSP. And maybe now I'm charging $275 a user because I'm able to do everything
mm-hmm.
within the network for them.
Great. So, I know that was kind of that's a lot of great advice, but, any other advice for someone who's just looking to get started? Things they can go out on their own and do it better themselves?
Well, don't. No, I'm kidding. just keep in mind, like I said earlier, you are starting a customer service company,
Mm-hmm.
and you might think that, you know, your boss is an idiot and he doesn't listen to you, and why doesn't he just buy this product? You're going to learn really quickly, especially if you don't really have like the business knowledge. I had no idea how to run a business. I'd never managed a team, you know, nothing.
Yeah.
I started my MSP and I'm like, oh, this is QuickBooks. This is fun. So you're going to learn really quickly the reasons your boss would not invest the extra $600 a month. It's only $600 a month to get this fancy new software package that makes your life so much easier.
Yeah.
You can't afford it.
Yeah. It's different when you're paying the bills.
I don't care how much he charges an hour and that you only get 10% of that hourly rate. He can't afford it. And you're right. You don't have one boss anymore.
Yeah.
You have 30, because every single one of your clients can fire your ass.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So all that being said, what's the best part about being in managed services? You know, what do you think is the best?
You know, once you start to understand how to run the business, it really is empowering to say, you know what, I want to use this software package, and it's my company, and I can do what I want.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic when you get to be the decision maker.
Yeah. Because
your clients typically are not dictating to you what technology they need.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't care if it's, you know, Bitdefender or Sophos or Symantec.
Yeah.
They just want security that keeps them secure.
Yeah.
So, you know, it is so much, for me, it is so much fun to do that software selection. I get myself into trouble with software selection because I keep selecting.
Yeah, I can see that.
The one, you know, with that said, don't find reasons to distract yourself. You know, if you're afraid to sell, maybe you shouldn't be in business. I don't know. But I found myself for a long time afraid to sell. So I would find reasons to not sell.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to switch to Autotask. 6 months later, I'm going to switch back to ConnectWise.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's switch my RMM tool now. I've tried nearly every PSA and RMM at least twice.
Okay.
I mean, it is disgusting how much time and effort I put into playing with MSP tools rather than selling my MSP services.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's why I'm so good at MSP Webinars, because I've used it all.
Yeah, no, that's true. You know, when you've had a lot of experience with a lot of different vendors, you know, you obviously know the right questions to ask, and you've got relationships, so it kind of makes sense the path that you've taken with MSP Webinars.
Yes.
So what's the worst thing about being an MSP?
Well, like I said, you know, when you think you can do it better than your boss, and you realize you're not your own boss. You know, when you realize I really don't know how to run a business.
Yeah.
You know, because it's not just I'm such a good technician that I can go out and do this. I mean, you need to be not just the tech. You need to be the sales guy, the marketing guy, mm-hmm. the accounting guy, you know, accounts receivable, accounts payable. You got to pay your bills. If you don't pay the bills, things start getting shut off.
Yep.
So you have so many hats to wear as a business owner, especially, you know, when you go into business for yourself, you're just starting out, you don't have employees. Mm-hmm. Not usually anyway. Yeah. You know, so because you're just starting out, you typically, you probably did not go talk to all of your former clients from your former employer and say, hey, why don't you come with me, and then go hire a bunch of people.
Yeah.
You probably did this on the up and up. Mm-hmm. And so you got to start from scratch.
Yeah. And
a lot of times people don't know where to start. You know, do I need to go buy a PSA right now? Do I need to go buy an RMM? Do I need, you just need to go sell something and then buy the tools to support it.
Yeah. yeah, worry about the other stuff later. So,
Yeah.
so in terms of community, I mean, obviously MSP Webinars is you're building a great community over there, but where else do you kind of hang out from an MSP perspective? I've seen you in some places. What do you think is kind of one of the best places to hang out for MSPs, or if you're just getting started?
There's obviously a huge community on Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just saw something the other day that like Reddit was voted by MSPs as like the #1 place they like to hang out. So definitely check that out. There's like thousands or tens of thousands of people that are subscribed to that Reddit community.
Mm-hmm.
Just be careful because that is publicly accessible.
Yeah.
That's my only caveat there. There are a ton of Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups. I would say the Facebook groups are really well used. The LinkedIn groups are a great place to go look at advertisements. the Facebook groups, I would say that there's one called IT MSP Entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And there's another one called IT Pros.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those are fantastic resources. There's also a group for just about every RMM, PSA. Mm-hmm. There's even a group, I'll be honest, I run it, but I've got some other admins in there too. There's a group for Screen Connect user group.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is a group for everything. You know, if you want to go talk about Autotask PSA, go join the Autotask PSA group on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's not as, excuse me, it is not as utilized. It's not as post heavy as some of the other ones that are more tool agnostic. Mm-hmm. But if you just want to go read about Autotask PSA, there's a group for it.
Yeah.
If you just want to go talk about Lab Tech, or I'm sorry, ConnectWise Automate.
Yes.
There's a community out there called Lab Tech Geek, and they have a Slack team that you can join.
Oh, okay.
There's tons of Slack teams starting up too. There's a Discord channel, which is basically sponsored by the Reddit group. Mm-hmm. So Discord, you would go to msp.zone. That's the website. Mm-hmm. msp.zone. And it'll launch Discord. You can either download it or use it through the web. And there's so much happening in that one. And then there's another one called IT Pool Party, and that's a Slack team.
Yeah, I joined that. I joined that a couple weeks ago. So
that one is, they're both very different. Mm-hmm. I would say that the Slack team is less banter, more business, but it's also, again, fewer people using it. So you'll find that as the groups get larger, there tend to be more egos. There tend to be more banter, more clicks.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that too.
Mm-hmm. Great. So we're kind of starting to wind down, but in terms of the podcast, but couple quick things here. One is technology, right? You love technology. That's what you do. Mm-hmm. But in terms of general technologies, what are you most excited about today? What kind of whether it's related to MSP business or consumer tech or whatever, what kind of broad-reaching technologies are you most excited about?
All right. So personally, I'm an Apple fanboy.
Okay.
So around this time of every year, I get real excited to see, what's the next phone, mm-hmm. what's the next watch, all that stuff. So that's on the personal. Professionally, I would say I'm really excited to see what is Datto going to do with Autotask PSA and Datto RMM over the next 12 to 18 months. Mm-hmm. There's tons of new PSAs and RMMs starting up.
Yeah.
Like Synchro. So I'm really excited to see, can Synchro close the gap between their product and some of the more established ones, like mm-hmm. Autotask, Kaseya, ConnectWise, that type of stuff.
Okay.
So I just love seeing these startups. I love rooting for the little guy because I consider myself the little guy.
Yeah. Okay. So what technologies worry you the most? What are you most worried about?
I don't know that there's anything that's really worrying me right now. It does seem like there's a lot of consolidation in the channel, so that can be worrisome.
Yeah.
You look, Continuum just bought Carver. Kaseya has their own PSA.
Yeah.
I think ConnectWise, didn't they just make an acquisition? I can't even keep up anymore. So
Yeah.
you look and you're like, oh, this is owned by them now. Like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So the consolidation can be alarming, especially if maybe you're a ConnectWise guy or a Kaseya guy, and you use Datto BDRs. Well, should I be concerned? Are they going to integrate really well with Autotask now and forget about us? So, that's the kind of stuff that I sometimes worry about. It doesn't keep me up at night, but I worry about that. Another thing is, I feel like there's more and more self-proclaimed experts joining the channel to sell their hopes and dreams to struggling MSPs. And I just want to clarify, I am not an expert. I bring the experts, and we have a group discussion. But I see a lot more of that.
Okay. Great. So now it's time for the rapid fire round. These are simple questions. Just either a yes, no, or we're not even yes, no. It's typically just a choice. We'll go through them as fast as we can, and we'll talk about it at the end. So, first one, I already know the answer to this: Apple or Android?
I would love it to be Android. I would, but it's got to be Apple.
Okay. Mac, Linux, or Windows?
I'm talking to you on my Mac.
Okay. Amazon or Azure, or Google?
Azure.
Okay. Local backups or cloud, or both?
Both.
Okay. And should you always virtualize? Yes or no?
I say yes.
Okay.
Servers, yes.
Servers, yes. Okay. And then which is worse, printer support or vendor cold calls?
Printers are my kryptonite.
Okay.
I can hang up on a vendor.
But you can't fix PC load letter. Awesome. So that was that was our rapid fire round. That's pretty painless. Before we go today, any other wisdom or knowledge that you want to impart on our audience here before we go?
This is the one question I didn't think was coming. It's always that. Oh, what do you want to impart on us before we go? I don't know. Honestly, don't be afraid to ask for help. It is okay to talk to your peers, to talk to other MSPs, and ask for their opinions.
Yeah.
There's enough business for us to go around. I have friends that are MSPs within 10 miles of my MSP office. It's okay. And one of them, we have never ever even quoted the same company at the same time.
Yeah.
Ever. We don't run into each other. So don't be afraid to reach out and build relationships even locally with your peers.
Okay. Great. Steve, thank you so much. This has been very enlightening. Love the work you're doing with MSP Webinars. So if you're listening, check it out, MSPWebinars.com, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So definitely check that out. There'll be a link in the show notes as well. And Steve, thanks for being a great guest.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
It was. Thank you very much.